On behalf of the Maryland Federation of Art, I want to welcome you all here today. This is the virtual awards ceremony for the Spring Member Show 2024. I am Amani Freeman, the exhibitions manager for the Maryland Federation of Art, and I am joined here today by Juliana Oakes, our gallery assistant, and our juror, Maya Vollkommer. Maya Vollkommer is a jeweler, a small businesswoman, teacher, cat lady, and a lover of pho and kung fu movies. She has been teaching beading and jewelry techniques for 22 years now at venues around the country, most notably for 20 years at the Smithsonian Associates, which is the Smithsonian Institution's continuing education program. And she'll be teaching for the first time at Pakistan Arts School of Fine Art and Craft in North Carolina this July. For the last 12 years, Ms. Vollkommer has been making and selling her jewelry with her business Two Dots Over the Eye. When teaching, Ms. Vollkommer derives great pleasure from showing her students that creativity and the maker's spirit are in each and every one of us, and they're just waiting to be discovered. So now I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Vollkommer, who wants to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. It is so great to be joining you here at the virtual awards ceremony. It was my great pleasure and honor to be the juror for your spring member show. For my juror statement, from my graduate school days up until just last week, which is quite a long time, I have submitted my own artworks to juried shows and festivals. So when Amani approached me to jury this year's spring member show, I knew that I had been entrusted with a very serious responsibility. What immediately struck me as I looked at your work is the sheer breadth of subject matter and techniques. Both your creativity and craftsmanship are to be commended. The criteria of communal meeting, openness, and stickiness were inspirational to me and allowed me to spend meaningful time with each piece as I considered it for the show. My award choices reflect both overall excellence and in part echo my current personal concern of how we identify as individuals and whether that puts us within or outside of the communities we seek to understand and contribute to as best we can. My congratulations to everyone represented in the show, and also especially to the awardees. Thank you so much for sharing your art and passion with me. And the little bit more about myself that I'll tell you is that in addition to being a jeweler, I have my MFA in photography from the George Washington University and have had the great privilege of serving on juries for such things as the contemporary craft section of the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival, and also for gallery and public artworks at the Arts Council of New Orleans. So that's a little bit about me. And if you have any other questions about me, I would be happy to answer those at the end. But I think now we're ready to jump into the awards. My reflections on these works, I will say, are very personal. I do not have a great depth of art history knowledge, so I apologize for not including any meaningful remarks about where the art might fit or what other works they might be comparable to. So for this piece, I was greatly taken by the visual texture, the incredible creation of a three-dimensional space with these two-dimensional fabrics. And the thing that really drew me into the piece was this sort of almost sense of confrontation, first maybe with me, but then you notice the viewer's phone or the subject's phone. And then so there's the confrontation goes from outside to within the piece as the person is considering their phone and their own digital world, as the title states. This piece here, I was very intrigued by the complexity and the simplicity that were kind of like in juxtaposition, but also harmony with each other in this work, to look at the very detailed and complicated lines within the subject, and then to have this really vibrant but restful plane of yellow where your eye could go for a while to rest before you came back to this amazing face. And I would definitely stop and listen to this man's story if he chose to tell it to me. This piece here, I felt really embodied the aesthetic direction of openness, which from my directions as a juror was not only about variety, but a piece that could be understood from a contradicting viewpoint. Because when I first saw this work, I was really taken by sort of the softness of it, the vastness of the negative space. And then the more I looked, the more I noticed that the gaze of the horse is now off, is behind it and is off the canvas. And I became increasingly worried and concerned as to what was going on in that space that I could not see, that was drawing the horse's attention. Now, I'm not a horse person, so maybe this is a fine and okay look for a horse to have, but it kept me within the space of the painting I could see, and that I couldn't see, wondering what the further story was. So this piece, again, unfortunately, my opinion is not informed by art history. However, I wanted to be able to stand at the shoulder of this artist to watch how they were able to transform paint into light the way that it's coming out at us from this work. It's beautiful, but I want to know the technical things that went on to make this piece as gorgeous as it is. So this was really a joy, and like leapt off the screen when I clicked on it through the process. So congratulations, this is a very beautiful work. So this one I enjoyed particularly as a sort of collection of human symbols. When I first looked at it, I was captivated by, of course, the color and the juxtaposition of the shapes. And then the longer I looked at it, and it became an eye, and it became sort of a connectivity symbol like we see on our phones, and a fingerprint, and maybe even the cancellation of a stamp. This sort of story of how we communicate, and the symbols that we use, both as sort of standards, whether they're icons on our phone or identifiers for the things that we interact with every day, led me to read this painting almost like a novel, getting further and further into it the longer that I looked. So this piece here, again, I was taken by quite a few of the portraits and pieces that centered the human face or the human figure from this show, again, sort of just as some of my own thoughts about community and sort of where we are in the world and where we're going in the world, kind of filtered into my selection process. And this piece here, I was sort of taken by the ability to read flowers both as symbols of celebration, but also potentially mourning. And I was intrigued to know what the story of this subject was as she broke that fourth plane and looked out at me almost as if she wanted to tell me something as I was gazing into her space. This one to me was just very peaceful pleasure to look at. I was able to look at it for a long time and really take in a lot of the different shapes and the chromatic values and things that were going on in a way. And first of all, the sort of overall cool, the blues and the magentas of the work juxtaposing with the, especially that highlight of green there in sort of like the right-hand third of the image, along with the circular fans and all of the square shapes. And rather than these things being in conflict, I found them quite harmonious. And I read the piece as being sort of the start of a day, sort of sunrise, even though I'm not sure whether it's sunrise or sunset. But again, this sort of harmonious whole is what really intrigued me about this image. This piece here, I think, appealed to all of my senses. The skill of the artist allowed me to sort of feel the water, to hear the way it would have moved around the rock, to sense the cool of the shadows in those trees there, and even to smell the heat of the sun coming off of the surface of those rocks there in the center. So it sort of enveloped me from all sides in its, again, the skill of its rendering and the beauty of the colors that work your eye throughout the composition. it's a cliche, and probably I don't know if it's one that I should even utter, but I love the everyman aspect of this image, the elevation of a common person, like I would consider myself to be, into a work of art through the gorgeous manipulation of the pastel, the creative use of color in the shadows and in the skin tone. And I also really enjoyed sort of what I would call, with my background, the photographic cropping of this image, where you're just getting sort of a peek into who this person is in the elements that are just working their way slightly into the frame. Tells us, begins to tell us perhaps a little bit of this man's story. And last but not least, I chose this piece as sort of, I would say, as a representation of what I would think about as being a sort of digital component in our art space, thinking more about whether AI is an intrusion into our work or something to be embraced. I also enjoyed how the use of rather simple looking materials were combined to create sort of these small three-dimensional spaces, and given the whole piece a more sort of complex feel. But again, this did speak to me sort of as I wonder about where we're going in our digital world, which we experienced already with digital photography. And of course, photography lives on, but you never know what's around the corner for us as artists as things change and grow. So those are my notes. I hope that I was able to say at least one interesting thing about the work. And I hope that you enjoyed having a chance to look at these pieces for a little bit as I spoke. And I'm hoping to be able to get to the gallery to see all of these wonderful pieces in person. It would be a great pleasure for me to be able to do that. And now, as the slide says, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. Also, I mean, if anybody would be interested in letting me know how you got into art, or how, has it been something you've been pursuing for a long time, or if you just picked it up, after the end of a career. That's something, it was hard, as a juror, you see all of this amazing work, but you don't really know the people who are on the other side. So I had a lot of questions for all of you as I looked, and I had to keep those to myself. Joan was asking for a printed copy of my comments. I believe that the juror statement that I read will be issued out to everyone. And there's a recording going on of this program. I'm not sure if there's a transcript or not, but I believe that as
Will you be attending the closing reception?
Me, I hope to be. From the beginning of the process, I let Amani know that I'm in the process of selling my house.
Oh.
So some things are a little bit in flux, but it is my aspiration to be there. Yes.
I think it's lovely to meet real people. And
yes, no, for sure. For
Well,
sure. I mean, Zoom is both a blessing and a curse. It gives us the chance to all be here right now and to have these things preserved for YouTube and things. But yeah, it's nothing like shaking someone's hand and standing in front of work together, for sure.
Well, and I guess it's a difficulty when you really only see the work on a screen, because it's of course very different when you're face to face. So, and that's something you haven't had the opportunity to do yet. Is that correct?
That's correct. I was given the option to be able to do the awards online or in person, and unfortunately I was not able to come to the gallery. However, I feel like I spent a good deal of time considering both the size and the detail of the work as I looked at it. And I have, both as someone who submits work for jurying and someone who's looked at work, I know that there are limitations to things that are represented on a screen. But we've kind of all been doing that since we were sending slides into shows.
Right. Well, yeah, it's just interesting. It's different.
Now, like Ms. Barrett said, Ms. Vollkommer, if you are free on the 25th, please do stop by. I know just from what people have told me, this is a lot of people's favorite show. Yeah, no, it's been really well received, and I think it'd also be fulfilling for you to see the works that you picked through a screen, like actually on the wall.
Mm, yes.
I think for today, everyone has asked their questions, and if not, obviously you guys can direct them to me, and I'll contact Ms. Vollkommer if you want to get in contact with her, with any questions or comments. But I think that is all for today. I want to just thank you again so much for being such a pleasure to work with, for being so insightful, and I hope that you found the process enjoyable, and hopefully in the future, we can work together in a similar vein. So.
I would love that. It was very fulfilling. And again, my great pleasure and honor to have been a part of this. Thank you so much.
That's lovely. We really appreciate all the work that you've done. And on behalf of the artists and the MFA, I just want to say thank you one more time. Thank you all again and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.